The starship from Earth floated above the alien world like a silver bird in the endless night sky. It had taken many months to reach this distant system, and now the human envoy named Aaron stepped out of its hatch. His boots touched the shining stone of the landing platform, and a group of alien guards in bright armor greeted him with still silence. They did not bow, but they did not raise their weapons either. Their eyes glowed faintly, and their tall frames moved with disciplined grace. Aaron followed them, his steps steady though his heart was heavy with the weight of his duty. He had been chosen to represent humanity before the great alien kingdom. The stories about this world reached Earth long before his journey. It was said that their palace was carved from crystal mountains, that their rulers lived among beauty unmatched across the stars. Now he was about to see it with his own eyes. The path from the landing bay led him across a long bridge that stretched over a valley filled with glowing rivers. The air shimmered with strange colors, as if the sky itself was painted by unseen hands. Aaron lifted his head and kept walking, his escort guiding him toward two massive gates at the edge of the shining city. The gates opened without a sound, revealing the heart of the alien realm. The city was alive with sound and light. Towers rose like trees of glass, their tips touching the clouds. Walkways curled above the streets, carrying groups of aliens dressed in flowing robes. Music echoed in the distance, carried by the wind itself. The guards led Aaron through the wide streets, and citizens turned their heads to watch the human pass by. Some whispered, some smiled faintly, others looked with suspicion. Aaron kept his face calm, hiding the unease that stirred within him. At last, they reached the palace. It stood taller than any structure Aaron had ever seen. Its walls were made of crystal so clear that light flowed through them, casting rainbows across the ground. Towers spiraled upward, crowned with silver spires. Before its entrance lay a vast courtyard filled with banners and flowers. Servants moved quickly, arranging decorations, as though something important was about to begin. The guards stopped at the foot of a grand staircase. Aaron climbed the steps alone, his reflection following him in the polished stone beneath his boots. The doors ahead opened, and he stepped into the grand hall. The sight stole his breath. The hall stretched further than any cathedral on earth. Its ceiling rose high above, shaped like the night sky, filled with stars that glowed as if real. The walls shone with carvings of ancient battles and peaceful harvests, each scene alive with detail. Pillars of crystal lined the path ahead, leading toward a throne raised on a platform. Music played softly in the air, though no musicians were seen. At the far end of the hall, the royal family waited. The king sat on the throne, tall and commanding, his robes embroidered with gold patterns. His crown was not of metal but of living vines that glowed faintly. Beside him sat the queen, her eyes calm yet sharp, her presence like flowing water. In front of them stood the princesses, each dressed in ceremonial robes of bright colors. The first princess stood at the center. She was the one every voice spoke of, the one called the most beautiful. Her gown sparkled like silver fire, and her hair flowed like a dark river. Her smile was gentle, her posture graceful, and her beauty seemed almost otherworldly. The nobles who lined the hall watched her with admiration, whispering her name with awe. But as Aaron's gaze swept past her, he noticed something else. Behind the first princess, slightly apart from the rest, stood another. She wore no shining gown, only a plain robe of soft gray. Her head was bowed, her hair partly covering her face. She made no attempt to draw attention, and the crowd ignored her as if she were invisible. She stood close to the wall, her hands folded neatly in front of her, and even the light seemed to pass her by. Aaron's heart gave a small stir. He had heard nothing of her in the reports. The records spoke only of the shining princess, the jewel of the kingdom. Yet here was another, almost hidden, overlooked by all. The king raised his hand, and the hall grew quiet. His deep voice rolled across the chamber. Envoy of Earth, welcome to the hall of our ancestors. You come at a time of unity, and we honor your presence. As is our custom, you shall walk forward and greet the one who will guide you during your stay. She will stand with you as you learn of our people, and your choice will be remembered in our records. A soft murmur rose from the crowd. The meaning was clear. Erin was being invited to choose among the princesses. The most beautiful stood in the center, her eyes calm, a faint smile on her lips, waiting with quiet certainty. Everyone expected him to walk toward her, for she was the pride of her people. Erin took a slow breath. His boots clicked gently on the stone floor as he stepped forward. Every eye in the hall followed him, waiting for his choice. He passed between the crystal pillars, his gaze steady. The shining princess lifted her chin ever so slightly, confident he would stand before her. But then Erin's steps shifted. He did not stop at the center. He walked past her, past the light and the admiration of the nobles. The whispers turned sharp with surprise. Some gasped, some frowned. Even the king's face tightened. Erin kept walking until he reached the quiet figure at the back. The overlooked princess raised her head in shock, her eyes wide. For the first time, someone stood before her. Erin bowed gently. The hall fell silent. The beautiful princess still stood in her glory, but the envoy of Earth had chosen the one who was hidden in the shadows. The silence in the grand hall lasted longer than a heartbeat. The nobles shifted uneasily, their bright robes rustling like restless waves. Every eye was fixed on Erin, the human envoy who had ignored the shining center and walked toward the quiet shadow. The overlooked princess, Illyra, stood frozen. Her lips parted slightly as though she could not believe what was happening. For so long she had stood behind her sisters, unseen, unspoken of, unnoticed. Yet here was a man from another world, bowing to her as if she were the only one who mattered. The most beautiful princess, Serenya, lifted her head high. Her smile faltered, just a little, but she kept her poise. Nobles glanced at her with confusion, then back at Erin, as whispers filled the air. Why him choose her? One voice hissed from the side. Perhaps he does not understand, another replied. The king's deep voice cut through the noise. Envoy of Earth, you stand not before the chosen one. You pass by the daughter who shines before all and place yourself before another. Do you know what you do? Erin straightened. His voice was calm though his heart beat hard in his chest. I know what I do, my king. I walk toward the one who stood where no one looked. I choose her. Gasps swept the hall. The queen leaned forward slightly, her eyes sharp. Yet there was no anger in her gaze, only curiosity. Serenya stepped aside with grace, though her hands tightened on her gown. The nobles whispered more loudly now, some shaking their heads, others glancing at Illyra as if seeing her for the first time. The king's frown deepened. Illyra has never been chosen. She walks the quiet halls, not the grand ones. She does not stand as symbol of our people. Yet you select her. Erin bowed his head once. Yes. I select her. The silence that followed was heavy, but it was unbroken. At last the queen raised her hand. Her voice was soft but carried through the chamber. Then so it shall be. If the envoy of Earth chooses Illyra, then Illyra will guide him. Let it be remembered in the records that a human saw worth where no one else did. The nobles lowered their heads, though many faces showed surprise. The king gave a slow nod, his expression unreadable. Illyra's hands trembled slightly, but she stepped forward as custom demanded. She bowed to Aaron, her eyes lifting only for a moment to meet his. In that moment he saw a mixture of wonder, doubt, and something deeper, a spark that had long been hidden beneath years of silence. The ceremony ended, and the nobles left the hall still whispering. Some looked at Illyra with curiosity, others with disdain, as though Aaron's choice had insulted their sense of order. Yet none dared speak against the king and queen once their word had been given. Aaron and Illyra were led out through a side passage. The hall grew quieter as the distance between them and the court widened. For a time neither spoke. The sound of their footsteps echoed softly on the polished floor. At last Illyra broke the silence. Her voice was soft, like the gentle wind that moved through hidden valleys. "Why did you choose me? You could have chosen Serenya. She is the light of the kingdom. She is the one everyone admires. Why me?" Aaron looked at her. Her head was still bowed, as though afraid of the answer. He spoke gently. "Because everyone already sees her. No one saw you. And yet I believe that where others do not look, there is truth." Illyra stopped walking. She lifted her head slowly, meeting his gaze for the first time. Her eyes were a deep shade, filled with a quiet strength that even she did not realize she carried. For a long moment they stood there, no words between them, only the weight of something new forming. They continued down the passage until they reached a wide balcony that opened to the city below. The night sky stretched endless above them, filled with unfamiliar constellations. Lanterns floated through the air as servants prepared for the festival of lights that would take place soon. Music drifted faintly on the wind. Illyra leaned against the railing, her hands folded together. "Do you not fear the court will laugh at you? They will call you foolish. They will say the human envoy does not know our ways." Aaron smiled faintly. "Perhaps. But I did not come here to please the court. I came here to learn your people. And I believe I will learn more walking with you than standing in a hall of mirrors." Illyra's lips curved, just slightly, into something like the beginning of a smile. It was small, uncertain, but it carried more meaning than the grandest smiles of others. Below them the city pulsed with life. Lights shimmered, streets filled with movement, towers glowed against the night. Yet up on the balcony it was quiet, just the two of them, human and alien, looking at the same sky. Illyra spoke again, her tone softer. "I have always stood behind. Serenya shines like the sun. My sisters are strong in their own ways. I learned to step aside. To remain unseen. But tonight, you walked toward me. That is something I will not forget." Aaron nodded. "Then let us begin from here. You as my guide, I as your guest. Let us see what others cannot." The moment stretched, filled with calm understanding. Illyra lowered her gaze again, though her cheeks held a faint glow, not from shame but from something almost like hope. When they returned to the inner chambers, servants prepared a chamber for Aaron. The guards still watched with unreadable faces, though Aaron could feel the weight of their judgment. It did not trouble him. His choice was made, and he would stand by it. Later that night, Illyra returned quietly to her own quarters. She sat by the window, looking out at the floating lanterns rising into the sky. For the first time in many years, her heart beat not with sadness but with a strange warmth. Someone had chosen her, not out of duty, not out of custom, but out of simple will. And in the quiet of her room, she whispered to herself, "Perhaps I am not invisible after all." Far away, the king sat with the queen in the throne room. His face remained stern, but the queen's eyes carried a faint smile. "The human sees what we have ignored," she said softly. The king's reply was heavy but thoughtful. "Perhaps this will change more than we expect." The next morning began with soft light spilling across the crystal towers of the city. The palace bells rang low and deep, their sound carrying far across the valley. Aaron rose from his chamber and prepared himself, his mind calm yet curious. He knew the court still whispered about his choice, but he cared little for their judgment. Today, he would walk with Illyra, the princess no one had expected him to choose. When he stepped into the outer hall, Illyra was already waiting. She wore a simple robe of pale green, tied neatly at her waist. There were no jewels, no ornaments, only quiet dignity. She bowed her head slightly. "Good morning, envoy," she said softly. "Good morning, Illyra," Aaron replied. "Shall we begin?" She nodded and led him through the palace corridors. Servants passed them, bowing quickly to Illyra but never meeting her eyes. Aaron noticed the silence and wondered how many years she had lived like this, unseen by those around her. At last they stepped into the open air. Before them stretched the royal gardens. Aaron stopped, his eyes widening at the sight. The gardens spread for miles, filled with strange and beautiful life. Trees of crystal rose tall, their branches bending like glass but alive with green leaves that shimmered when touched by light. Flowers bloomed in colors beyond human imagination, some opening and closing as though breathing. Streams of glowing water flowed between the paths, and bridges curved over them like silver ribbons. The air smelled sweet, carrying the faint hum of unseen creatures that floated through the blossoms. "It is beautiful," Aaron said quietly. Illyra looked across the garden with calm eyes. "Yes, but few walk the paths anymore. The court prefers the great halls and shining balconies. They forget the hidden corners." She led him along a stone path, their footsteps soft against the polished surface. Birds with wings like painted glass soared overhead, their calls like soft chimes. Aaron felt a sense of peace he had not known since leaving Earth. Illyra guided him not to the main fountain, where other nobles gathered, but down a smaller trail that twisted between tall hedges. The deeper they went, the quieter it became, until the sound of the city faded away. They reached a small pond hidden between trees. Its surface reflected the sky like a perfect mirror, and tiny fish of silver darted beneath the water. Aaron knelt by the pond. "This place feels alive." Illyra sat on a stone nearby. Her voice was gentle. "When I was a child, I came here often. While others learned the songs of the court, I listened to the whispers of the garden. These places remember. They carry the old spirit of our people." Aaron watched her as she spoke. Her eyes softened when she looked at the flowers and the water, as though she belonged more to the quiet of the earth than to the throne room. He understood then why she had seemed invisible to the court. She did not shine with bright light, but she carried something deeper, a light that was patient and steady. They walked further, and Illyra showed him plants that closed their petals when touched, vines that glowed faintly at night, and trees whose leaves sang in the wind. Each time, she spoke not as one repeating lessons but as one sharing secrets. Aaron listened with care, asking questions, his curiosity genuine. "Do you ever wish," Aaron asked as they passed beneath a flowering arch, "that your people valued these things as you do?" Illyra hesitated. "At times. But perhaps they cannot see it. They are blinded by beauty that shines too brightly. They forget that quiet things also have worth." Aaron nodded. "On Earth we have a saying. Not all treasures glitter in the sun. Some rest in shadow until someone chooses to look. Her steps slowed, and for the first time she smiled openly. It was not the perfect smile of a court princess, but something warmer, more human. "That is a wise saying," she said. By midday they reached a tall hill within the garden. At its peak stood a single tree, its branches wide and heavy with blossoms of gold. The air beneath it was cool, filled with drifting petals that fell like soft rain. From here they could see the city stretched below, towers gleaming in the sunlight. Illyra sat beneath the tree, and Aaron joined her. For a long time they were silent, simply watching the petals fall. The stillness between them was not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that carried meaning without words. At last Illyra spoke. "When you walked toward me in the hall, I thought perhaps you made a mistake. Perhaps you had not seen Serenya clearly. But now, as we walk here, I begin to think you truly saw me." Aaron looked at her. "I saw you. Not as the court sees, but as you are." Her eyes lowered, but her voice held a quiet strength. "Then perhaps I was not wrong to guide you here. You may learn more from these hidden paths than from any throne." They remained beneath the golden tree until the shadows began to lengthen. When they rose and walked back through the garden, Aaron felt a change within himself. He had come to learn of the alien kingdom, but through Illyra he was learning something greater: the worth of what is unseen, the beauty that waits in silence. As they neared the palace gates once more, a group of nobles stood waiting. Their eyes glanced at Illyra with the same dismissive air, but then turned to Aaron with curiosity. They whispered, asking one another why the human envoy spent his time with the quiet princess instead of the shining one. Aaron ignored their stares. Illyra, however, walked with her head slightly higher. For the first time in many years, she did not feel invisible. Someone had chosen to see her, and through that choice, she found a reason to stand taller. That night, when Aaron returned to his chamber, he thought of the garden. He remembered the golden blossoms falling like rain, and Illyra's smile beneath the tree. A strange thought stirred in his heart: perhaps the true treasure of this journey was not the alliance he had been sent to build, but the connection he had begun to form with the princess who had lived too long in the shadows. The day of the Festival of Lights came quickly. From early morning, the city stirred with unusual energy. The streets filled with colors, voices, and the sound of drums beating like steady hearts. Lanterns of every shape were prepared to rise into the sky at night, carrying wishes and prayers. The palace itself became a place of gathering, its halls decorated with banners that shimmered like streams of water. Aaron rose from his chamber and looked down from his balcony. He saw the city alive beneath him, the people moving with joy. Children ran with ribbons trailing behind them. Merchants carried baskets of glowing fruit, and singers filled the air with music. He had never seen such celebration, and his heart felt lighter as he watched. Soon a soft knock came at his door. When he opened it, Illyra stood waiting. She wore a robe of deep blue, plain compared to her sisters, but elegant in its simplicity. A small band of silver rested on her wrist, the only ornament she carried. "Will you walk with me today?" she asked. "With pleasure," Aaron answered. Together they left the palace and stepped into the streets of the city. Guards followed at a distance, but the people still turned their eyes toward them. Some looked at Aaron with curiosity, others at Illyra with quiet surprise. Few had ever seen her outside the shadow of the palace. The main avenue was crowded, lined with stalls and lights. Dancers moved in circles, their robes flowing like waves, their feet striking the ground in rhythm with the drums. Serenya, the beautiful princess, stood on a raised stage at the heart of the avenue. Nobles surrounded her, admiring her grace as she greeted the crowd with shining smiles. Aaron noticed the attention she received, but his eyes did not linger. Illyria guided him away from the stage and into the smaller streets that branched like rivers from the main path. "The festival is not only the great shows," she said. "It is also in the corners where the old songs are sung." She led him into a narrow courtyard where a group of elders sat around a low fire. Their robes were worn, their hair silver, their eyes calm. They sang a melody that rose and fell like the tide, a song older than the towers of glass. The crowd here was small, yet the sound filled the place with quiet power. Aaron listened with deep respect. "What does the song tell?" "It tells of our first journey to this valley," Illyria replied softly. "When our people walked the mountains and found the rivers of light. It is a story few remember now. But these elders keep it alive." They stayed until the song ended. The elders bowed their heads, and Illyria returned the bow with genuine respect. When they walked away, she spoke again. "In the main festival, people chase light and color. But here, in the quiet places, the heart of the festival lives." Aaron smiled. "I think you carry the same heart. You see what others overlook, and you keep it alive." Her cheeks warmed slightly, though she said nothing. Instead, she guided him to another street where children gathered. They carried small lanterns shaped like animals, birds, fish, and even dragons. Their laughter filled the air as they prepared to release them. A teacher stood with them, helping tie the lanterns with fine strings. The children saw Aaron and Illyria and rushed forward. "Princess Illyria," they cried, their small hands reaching for her robe. "Will you light our lanterns?" Illyria knelt and took the small lanterns gently. She lit each one with a steady flame, her smile calm but kind. The children's eyes shone with joy. Aaron watched her and thought she looked more radiant in that moment than Serenya had on the stage. When the lanterns were ready, the children released them into the sky. One by one, the small lights drifted upward, joining the countless others rising across the city. Aaron tilted his head back, watching them float like stars, his chest filled with quiet wonder. As evening fell, the city reached its peak of celebration. Fireworks rose into the night, painting the sky with color. The river that cut through the city was covered with glowing petals set afloat by the people, each carrying a wish for the future. Aaron and Illyria stood on a stone bridge, watching the river of light pass beneath them. "What do your people wish for on nights like this?" Aaron asked. Illyria's eyes followed the glowing petals. "Some wish for joy. Some for fortune. Some for love. My own wish has always been simple. To be seen." Aaron turned to her, his gaze steady. "You are seen now, Illyria. You will never be invisible again." Her lips curved into the faintest of smiles, and her eyes glimmered in the soft light of the river. For the first time, she felt the truth of those words. But the night did not pass without shadow. A sudden tremor shook the bridge. People cried out as a rumble echoed across the city. Arrows of fire streaked from the sky, striking distant towers. The music stopped, replaced by alarms that rang through the streets. From above, dark shapes descended, machines with wings of steel and eyes of red light. They fell upon the city like predators, scattering the crowd in fear. Soldiers rushed to meet them, their weapons glowing, but the sky filled quickly with fire. Illyria grasped Aaron's arm. "Come. I know where to go." She led him away from the chaos, pulling him into a narrow alley. Behind them, the festival of joy had turned into a storm of screams and fire. The glowing river of petals continued to flow, carrying wishes into the night, but now those wishes mixed with cries for safety. Aaron followed without hesitation. He trusted her steps, for he saw the certainty in her eyes. She did not panic like the nobles. She did not freeze in fear. She moved with quiet strength, as though she had always known danger might come. The city of crystal towers, once filled with music and light, now trembled under attack. Fire streaked across the sky as the dark machines descended, their wings cutting through the air with sharp echoes. Where the festival of lights had filled the streets with joy, fear now spread like shadow. The people scattered, their lanterns falling and breaking against the ground. Aaron stayed close behind Illyra as she guided him through the narrow alleys. She moved quickly, her steps sure, her voice calm even as the sounds of battle roared above them. Guards clashed with the invaders, beams of energy flashing through the night. The sky, once bright with lanterns, now burned with fire. "This way," Illyra said firmly. She led him toward the side of the city where the walls were older, less guarded. Aaron noticed how she avoided the main roads where chaos spread. Instead, she turned into small passages that wound between tall houses. "How do you know these paths so well?" Aaron asked as they hurried. "I have walked them many times alone," she replied. "While my sisters stood on the grand stages, I wandered the quiet streets. I listened, I learned, and I remembered." They reached a hidden archway covered in vines. Illyra pushed it open, revealing a tunnel carved into the stone beneath the city. The air inside was cool and damp. She motioned for Aaron to follow, and together they descended into the darkness. The tunnel stretched far, lit only by crystals glowing faintly in the walls. Their footsteps echoed as they moved deeper. Behind them, the sound of battle grew distant. Aaron touched the wall gently as he walked. "Your people built these long ago?" "Yes," Illyra answered. "These tunnels were made when the first settlers came to this valley. They feared enemies from the skies. But in time, the court forgot them. Only those who care for the old path still know of their use." Aaron gave a small nod. "Then today, these forgotten paths may save lives." Illyra glanced at him. "Perhaps." They continued until the tunnel opened into a wide chamber. Inside, groups of citizens had already gathered. Families huddled together, their faces pale with fear. Guards stood at the edges, their armor scratched, their weapons ready. When Illyra stepped forward, the people gasped in surprise. Many bowed quickly, though their eyes held disbelief. "Princess Illyra," one of the guards said. "We did not expect you here." "Where are the others?" "They remain in the palace," Illyra answered. "I came here because these people needed a guide." The guard lowered his head. "Then you came at the right time. We cannot hold the skies forever. But at least we can keep the people safe." Aaron helped a child who stumbled near him, lifting the boy to his feet. The mother thanked him with trembling hands. Aaron looked around the chamber, seeing fear in every face, and he realized the importance of what Illyra had done. While others stood frozen in the palace, she had led him and many others into safety. Time passed slowly in the tunnels above them. The battle raged, but down here there was silence broken only by the faint cries of children and the low voices of the guards. Illyra walked among the people, speaking gently, offering calm words. Her presence steadied them more than the soldiers' weapons could. Aaron watched her closely. She was not the bright star the court praised, yet in this dark place she shone brighter than any of them. She moved with quiet courage, her eyes steady, her voice kind. He thought of the moment in the hall when he had chosen her, and he knew again that his choice had been right. After a long while, a messenger came rushing down the tunnel. His armor was scorched, his face marked with smoke. "The machines are retreating," he reported breathlessly. "Our forces drove them back, though many are wounded. The palace still stands, but much of the city burns." Relief spread through the chamber. Families embraced, children clung to their parents, guards lowered their weapons. Yet the fear did not vanish completely. Everyone knew this attack was not the end. Illyria spoke firmly. "We must return to the surface. These people need food, water, and shelter. The court will not come to them, so we must." The guard bowed. "As you command, Princess." Together they led the citizens back through the tunnel. When they emerged, the city lay before them, scarred by fire. Towers smoked, streets were broken, and the air smelled of ash. Yet lanterns still floated above, carrying the wishes that had been released before the attack. Among the smoke and ruin, those small lights continued to rise. Aaron stood on the broken street and looked at them. Even in destruction, hope still climbs toward the sky. Illyria watched the people as they began to rebuild, carrying stones, helping the wounded. She said quietly, "Hope only lives if someone carries it. Tonight, that is what we must do." They spent the rest of the night moving among the people. Aaron helped lift debris and comfort the injured. Illyria guided families to safe shelters and spoke to guards about protecting the weak. Nobles from the palace appeared hours later, but they only watched from a distance, their fine robes untouched by ash. When Aaron and Illyria finally returned to the palace at dawn, the court gathered in the throne room. Serenya stood beside her father, her gown untouched, her face still beautiful though her eyes betrayed unease. The nobles whispered as Illyria entered, her robe stained with dust, her hands marked by work. Aaron walked beside her, his own clothing bearing the marks of smoke and labor. The king's gaze was heavy. "Illyria," he said. "You left the palace during the attack." "Why?" Illyria bowed her head but spoke with steady voice. "Because the people needed me. The palace has guards enough. The streets did not. I led them to safety through the old tunnels." A ripple of shock passed through the nobles. The queen's eyes glimmered faintly, though her face remained calm. The king leaned forward. "And this human envoy, he followed you?" Aaron stepped forward before Illyria could answer. "I followed because she knew the way. She saved lives while others froze in fear. If not for her, many more would have fallen." The hall grew silent. The nobles shifted uneasily, and Serenya's smile faded. For the first time, all eyes turned not to the shining princess but to the one who had always been overlooked. Illyria stood quietly, her robe plain, her hair slightly disheveled, yet in that moment she seemed taller than anyone else in the hall. She had faced danger, and she had led her people with courage. The queen spoke softly, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Perhaps we have misjudged who holds the true strength of this kingdom." The king did not reply, but his silence carried weight. The court would remember what had happened, and whispers of change had already begun. That night, when Illyria returned to her chamber, she stood by the window and looked out at the ruined city. Fires still burned in the distance, but lanterns still floated in the sky. She thought of Aaron's words, and she held them close. Even in destruction, hope still climbs toward the sky. The morning after the attack, the city felt quieter, though the echoes of fear and fire still lingered in the streets. Smoke drifted from the broken towers, and citizens moved slowly among the ruins, repairing what they could. Guards patrolled carefully, and the court convened in the grand hall. All were aware that something extraordinary had happened the night before, though few dared speak openly. Aaron entered the throne room with Illyria at his side. She walked tall, her robe still marked with dust and ash. The nobles and princesses were gathered before the king and queen, their whispers filling the hall like the sound of wind through the crystal towers. "Envoy," the king said, his voice steady but heavy. "You stood with Princess Illyra during the attack. Tell us what you saw." Aaron bowed respectfully. "My king, I followed her because she knew the hidden paths. She led the citizens to safety through tunnels long forgotten. She guided families, comforted the wounded, and helped the guards protect those who could not defend themselves. Without her, many would have fallen." A murmur ran through the hall. Some nobles shifted uneasily in their seats. Others exchanged looks, as though they had never truly noticed Illyra before. Serenya, the most beautiful princess, stood quietly at the side. Her face was calm, but her eyes betrayed surprise and unease. The court had always praised her for her grace and presence, yet she had not moved during the attack. She had only watched. The queen leaned forward slightly, her gaze soft but sharp. "Aaron speaks truth. Princess Illyra, step forward and tell us what you did." Illyra bowed her head but did not hesitate. "During the attack, I led the people through tunnels beneath the city. I helped them find shelter, carried those who could not walk, and guided the guards to protect families. I acted as any citizen would hope a princess would act." Her voice was calm, yet it carried strength. The hall grew quiet. The nobles listened, unable to interrupt, unable to deny the truth. Aaron added, "I saw her courage and her care for the people. She did not seek attention or glory. She only did what was needed. And in doing so, she saved lives that might have been lost." A long silence followed. The king's face was unreadable, his hands resting on the arms of the throne. He studied Illyra closely, and for the first time, the court saw a hint of doubt in his eyes. The queen's voice broke the silence. "For years, we have valued appearance, ceremony, and admiration. We have judged worth by who shines the brightest. Perhaps we were wrong." Whispers filled the hall again, but now they carried a different tone. Instead of gossip, there was awe. People looked at Illyra with new eyes, realizing that her quiet presence had held the true strength of the kingdom. Serenya stepped forward. Her voice was soft but steady. "Illyra, I see now that your worth is greater than I understood. Last night, while I watched in fear, you acted. You showed courage I cannot match." Illyra shook her head slightly. "You acted as you always have. Your role is different from mine. We all serve in ways our people need." Aaron placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. "I have learned something important. True value is not in being admired or shining in the light. True value is in action, in courage, in care for others. You have shown all of this." The king finally spoke, his voice strong but reflective. "Then it is time that the records of our kingdom reflect this truth. From this day forward, Princess Illyra shall be recognized for her wisdom, her courage, and her care for our people. Her deeds shall not be overlooked again." A hush fell over the nobles. Some bowed deeply, acknowledging the king's words. Others remained silent, their faces marked by surprise or shame for having underestimated her. The court, long focused on appearance, began to shift its perspective. Illyra's eyes widened slightly. She had never expected public recognition. She had acted out of duty and concern, not for praise. And yet, here she stood, seen for who she truly was. Aaron smiled faintly. Sometimes, the unseen guide is the one who carries the world forward. Illyra's lips curved into a small, genuine smile. She stepped forward, standing beside Aaron. The people in the hall who had once ignored her now looked at her with admiration and respect. The quiet princess who had stood in the shadows was no longer invisible. The king's gaze softened. Let this day remind us that courage and wisdom may be found where we least expect it. We will remember the actions of Princess Illyra and the human who recognized her worth. Together, you have shown what it means to serve others. The queen added, and let it be known that our people's strength does not come from beauty or ceremony alone. It comes from those who act with courage and care in times of need. Aaron bowed once more to the king and queen, then turned to Illyra. Your people see you now, and I am proud to have chosen to stand with you. Illyra's heart lifted. And I am grateful you did. You saw what others ignored. The court began to disperse, but the effect of the day lingered. Nobles whispered, yes, but now the whispers carried awe and respect. Servants and guards looked at Illyra with recognition. Even Serenya, the one who had always drawn admiration, acknowledged her sister with newfound respect. Later, in the gardens that had once been a place of quiet beauty, Illyra walked with Aaron. The golden light of the afternoon touched the crystal towers, casting rainbows across the paths. She moved with calm confidence, her head held high. The city was still healing from the attack, but a sense of balance had returned. I never thought the court would understand, Illyra said softly. I have lived long in the shadows, and I expected it to continue. Yet today, they saw me as I am. Aaron smiled. Sometimes, it takes an outside eye to show the truth. And sometimes, courage reveals itself in ways that cannot be ignored. They walked together in silence for a while, listening to the soft murmur of the recovering city. Children ran past, playing among the flowers, their laughter carrying like music. Citizens worked side by side, clearing debris and rebuilding what had been broken. Illyra paused and looked at Aaron. The city will heal, but the memory of last night will stay with all of us. People will remember who acted with courage, not who looked beautiful on a stage. Aaron nodded. And they will remember you, Illyra. Not because you sought recognition, but because you deserved it. She smiled fully this time, a quiet joy shining in her eyes. The princess who had once been overlooked now stood seen, her actions marking the beginning of a new understanding in her kingdom. The sun began to set, painting the city in shades of gold and pink. Illyra and Aaron watched as the light reflected off the towers, the broken streets, and the recovering gardens. For the first time, the kingdom seemed whole, not because it was perfect, but because its people now understood that true strength and worth often lie where it is least expected. The city of crystal towers was alive again, though the scars of the attack still lingered. Smoke rose from a few distant buildings, but lanterns floated in the sky, carrying wishes and prayers from those who had survived. The streets, once silent and fearful, were now filled with voices of people rebuilding, sharing, and helping one another. Aaron walked beside Illyra through the central square. The people recognized her now. Children ran toward her, laughing and waving, while adults nodded in respect. Guards who had once doubted her courage now stood aside, allowing her to pass with honor. She walked with quiet strength, her eyes calm, her steps measured, yet her presence commanded attention. You have changed everything, Aaron said softly as they moved along a pathway lined with flowering trees. Illyra glanced at him and smiled. I did not change it alone. People have always cared, they only needed someone to guide them. I only showed the way. They stopped at the edge of the main fountain, where water shimmered in the afternoon light. Families sat along the steps, sharing meals and stories. Citizens repaired homes and businesses together, their laughter slowly returning. The festival that had been interrupted by fire and machines now seemed reborn, not as a display of grandeur, but as a true celebration of life and community. Illyra knelt to help a young girl lift a fallen basket of fruit. The child's eyes sparkled with gratitude. Aaron watched quietly. Every action she took, small or large, showed her care for others. It was not glory she sought, but understanding and safety. A messenger arrived, bowing deeply. "Princess Illyra, the council requests your presence. They wish to discuss the rebuilding and honor your actions." Illyra nodded. "Then we should go." She turned to Aaron. "Will you come with me?" "I will," he said. Together they entered the council chamber. The nobles and leaders were gathered, their expressions serious but respectful. At the front, the king and queen sat on the throne, their eyes fixed on Illyra. "Princess," the king began, "your actions during the attack revealed the truth we had ignored. You acted with courage, wisdom, and care. You led the people to safety and inspired them. Today, it is clear who truly serves this kingdom." The queen added, "Your bravery and guidance have shown that worth is not measured by appearance or position alone. It is measured by action, by heart, and by the willingness to act when it is needed most." Illyra stood tall, her hands folded calmly before her. "I only did what was necessary," she said. "I hope the people will remember that courage is in everyone, not just those in the spotlight." A hush filled the room. The nobles glanced at one another, realizing that the quiet princess they had once overlooked had acted more decisively than any of them. Even Serenya, the princess who had always drawn admiration for her beauty, stepped forward. "Illyra," she said softly, "you have shown me what it means to be truly strong. I am proud to stand beside you as my sister and as a guide for our people." Illyra inclined her head, accepting the words with grace. "Thank you, Serenya. Together, we can help the city recover and grow stronger." Aaron watched silently, feeling the full weight of the moment. He had chosen Illyra not because she was the most admired, but because he saw her worth when no one else did. That choice had changed everything. Now, the kingdom itself recognized the value of what he had known all along. The council agreed to follow Illyra's guidance in rebuilding the city. Structures damaged by fire would be repaired, and hidden paths that had saved lives would be maintained for future safety. Citizens were given a voice in the plans, ensuring that everyone had a place in the city's renewal. As the meeting ended, Aaron and Illyra stepped outside into the sunlight. The streets below were alive with activity, and the sound of laughter, conversation, and hope filled the air. The people no longer feared the shadow of the night before, they carried lessons of courage and care with them. Illyra paused near a fountain, watching children play among the floating lanterns. "I never imagined I would stand here like this," she said softly. "I always thought my place was in the shadows." "You were never meant to stay hidden," Aaron replied. "Some people shine quietly, but their light is stronger than the brightest star when it is needed most." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the golden sunlight. "And you, who chose to see me, changed my life." Aaron smiled. "I only followed the truth I saw. You led the way, and I learned from you." The city continued to heal, and the people's trust in their leaders grew. Illyra worked tirelessly alongside them, guiding projects, helping families, and ensuring safety. Her quiet determination inspired others to act, to care, and to value what was important beyond appearances. In the evenings, she and Aaron walked through the gardens, now filled with blossoms returning after the fire. The golden tree on the hill, under which they had spent time before the attack, stood tall and bright. Lanterns floated among its branches, carrying wishes of hope, courage, and unity. Illyra sat beneath the tree, letting the light touch her face. Aaron joined her, and together they watched the lanterns rise into the sky. Each small light seemed to echo the lessons of the past day's bravery, guidance, care, and the importance of seeing what others cannot. "You have changed the kingdom," Aaron said softly. "Not by force, not by command, but by showing what true courage looks like." Illyra smiled, her gaze fixed on the lanterns. "I only acted when it was needed. The kingdom will continue to change because the people themselves will remember what happened. Courage can no longer be hidden." As night fell, the city of crystal towers glimmered beneath the stars. Fires had been extinguished, broken streets repaired, and hope returned to the hearts of the people. The festival that had begun with lights and joy now symbolized more than celebration. It symbolized survival, unity, and the power of those who act with quiet courage. Aaron and Illyra stood together on the balcony of the palace. The people below moved through the streets, rebuilding and celebrating life. The city was alive, its heartbeat strong once more. "Today, the overlooked is no longer hidden," Aaron said. Illyra nodded, her heart full. "And today, we remember that every person has value. The one who acts, the one who cares, the one who is chosen by truth, they are the ones who shape the future." As they watched the city beneath them, Aaron knew that this kingdom had been changed forever. The princess who had once been unseen had become a guide, a leader, and a symbol of courage. And through her, he understood that the truest choice is always made with the heart. The lanterns rose higher into the night sky, carrying with them the wishes of a city reborn. Illyra and Aaron stood together, side by side, knowing that the future of the kingdom would be brighter than any light, because it was built on courage, wisdom, and care.